Hello, my name is M.K.Davis. What you're looking at here is a scene from a video clip of the inside of a tractor shed, which is the same shed that the Shed Talker video was shot, but the camera mounted on the outside of the building. Now, in this case, it's on the inside, and you can see some familiar things. You can see on the left there, you see a tractor, and that, I assume, is the same tractor that's in that video, the tractor guy. And on the right, you can see a smaller tractor, and you can see an opening, which is a doorway to this tractor shed. And the doorway is, I stretched the tape. Well, I'll put it like this. One of these other guys that does the pair breakdown thing, I was pretty amazed. He got within 3 feet of the actual size of the opening there, that doorway. I'm just funning, but it's 9 foot 6 inches according to my measurements with a tape measure, steel tape. So if you want to go back and review the tractor guy, that's what you're looking at on that opening. But back to the Shed Talker, if this camera had been operating at the same time the other camera was, you would have seen the Shed Talker in here. Whether it be human or Sasquatch, you would have known. But we didn't get that video. But what's kind of unique about this shed and the use of the shed by alleged or supposed Sasquatch or Bigfoot is that this shed seemed to be like a focal point where they would bring things in and out. Things that they would set up in another part of the property would end up in this shed. So it became, they actually found a 16-inch footprint in here as well. These footprints seem to have a unique shape to them. Let me just show you one. This wasn't the one found in the shed, but it's a good example. Let's take a look at it. See the odd shape of this footprint, and it's although it's human looking, there's some things about it that looks different. And even though this wasn't the one found in the shed, it was something similar to this, 16 inches long. So let's this particular footprint reminds me of this. Just watch this foot bottom. It'll delay. It'll stop right there where you can see the foot bottom. You can see it's very similarly shaped. Now here's a still of it, right at the end of the arrow there, and you can see that this is an unusually shaped foot. And when it picks it up in almost a pigeon-toed style. So that kind of lends credibility to what was going on in the shed, at least as far as my thinking goes. But we'll continue on with the discussion. Now, this is a blanket that was found on the inside of the shed, from that Shed Talker camera setup. And what's unusual about it, looks like somebody's been sleeping and maybe eating a little bread there. Well, the notes that came with the photo stated that they had that was an old blanket that they had folded up and put somewhere else the previous week. And then they found it inside that shed, spread out, and those 2 loaves of bread, one completely eaten, the other one had been in. Well, eating a loaf of bread is a very human thing, and you might just assume that was a human doing that quite naturally, except unless you saw this. I call this the bottle tosser because I thought this was a bottle, but I got corrected on that. It's actually a loaf of bread. It's a loaf of bread that was placed in those white bucket feeders, and this particular feeder had been candy bars that they had been putting in it, and then when they changed it to a loaf of bread, this was the reaction. So it helps to get an explanation. And sometimes if you don't get that explanation right then, you just be patient and you wait on it. So rather than call this the bottle tosser, it should have been called the bread tosser. They rejected the loaf of bread. They threw it in the creek, whoever it was. But could it have been the same individual that had the bread in the shed? I don't know. But I think it's likely that it could be. One more thing to show you. Here's that same scene outside the tractor shed again, looking out across the way. Except it's prior to the individual talking in the shed. And I'm going to show you, look in the upper left-hand corner there, right there on the horizon. And I'm going to blow that up. And we're going to look at, see what's going on. It's way off in the distance, but it's interesting. Let's take a look. Now you're going to see toward the right-hand side of the frame, you're going to see an individual. It's not clear enough to tell exactly who or what it is, but it's a shape. And I'll put an arrow on it here in just a second. But and watch what that individual does. There's the arrow. You see the dark shape there under the arrow. Okay, you're going to see two cows bolt and run over on the left side, and then this individual is going to give chase. Let's just watch it here. There he is. Now you ought to see those cows pretty soon. All right, there goes one of them right there. See it running? There goes another one, and they're in a panic. They kind of crisscross right there. And then they bolt on out. There goes the other one. There he takes off after him. There he goes with a burst of speed. Then he disappears the way they went. Now you're going to see another shape by the trees over here. Now the question is this another cow or is it upright? I don't know for sure. But you got to remember, this is only about three, maybe 3.5 minutes before the shed talker starts talking. And disappears over to the left. Maybe it's a cow, maybe it's not. I've heard that Sasquatch can get down on all fours too, and the Whitey's Run certainly shows that. So if this is a dark one, reminds me of the Ruby Creek incident that John Green wrote about, where this Mrs. Chapman at first thought she was looking at a cow. And then she realized it was a Sasquatch. And cows don't get up on 2 feet. So it must have been down on all fours when she first saw it. Now, the next question is, is that the same individual that we just saw that came into the shed and began the talking in Pidgin English? Now, I've got a bird. His brain's only about the size of a pea. He's got a 1,000-word vocabulary, African gray. If you have the tools to talk with, if you got the vocal cords, you can do it. Apes are plenty smart enough to talk. They just can't. They don't have the vocal cords for it. But, they do sign language. Mimicry. He repeats those words over and over. Now, first, let's look at this dog. This dog is the dog that belongs to the owner of the property, and he's used to, or they're used to, him or them. And you see that there's a little vocalization there, a little vocal reaction, but not really anything of fear on the part of the dog, or anything in the way of fear or anger or upsettedness on the part of the individual behind the camera making the vocals. Let's look at that one, and then we'll look at another one. And there you go. In that particular incident, you see that you hear those vocalizations that mimic human speech, but it's over and over and over again. Certainly not what a regular person would do. It was almost like they were practicing the word, But at any rate, now let's look at a couple of stray dogs in the same exact scene that do not belong to the owner and just happen to be coming across the place, and let's look at their reaction when they see something they don't know what it is. So you see, in some cases, there's very little reaction to the presence of an alleged Sasquatch or Bigfoot, such as in the Whitey's Run video, where the cow hardly paid notice. And then you see these other two cows where this other guy's coming across there, and they're like running for their lives. And then you see the owner's dog paid very little or no attention at all to the vocalization and the presence of somebody there. And you might say, well, that's probably because it's a hoaxer and they know him. Well, maybe. Well, these other two dogs certainly did not know what they were looking at. And they not only tore out, but they tore out and left a smoke trail. I mean, you can tell when an animal's scared. So, you know, it pays to wait on an explanation before you pass judgment. You know, if you don't know all the particulars, you know, if you holler hoax because I see this particular part of this, and it looks hokey, and I feel like it's a hoax, so it's a hoax. Not necessarily. You know, you got to get all your data in, and you know, I was fortunate enough that I got some things explained to me by the principals involved. You know, so when someone says it's a known hoax, and these are known hoaxers, no one has produced anything in the way of proof to that effect yet. And when I sit down and talk with these guys, and I realize, you know, that a lot of this stuff is just misunderstood. You know, I think maybe perhaps we ought to have a little more patience, me and you and everyone, when it comes to things like this. Because we don't know all the particulars. That shed video, we can't see on the other side of that shed, but it helps to know the circumstances surrounding it, and the prior and the afterwards, and maybe we can make a little better judgment of it. Oh, P.S. And by the way, the shed. The Shed Talker video was not taken with the security camera. It was taken with a mini camcorder. And I wanted to make sure I corrected that because that was brought to my attention, you know, by the people who took the video. So I wanted to get that in there. Anyway, I thank you for your time.